Yo, what's up? It's your boy, Pastor Ron. Welcome to my podcast, Faith Talk with Pastor Ron. Listen, I've been in ministry more than half my life. I've been in ministry at about 30 years. And I understand the ups and downs, the frustrations of ministry, and I've walked away from ministry so many times, so I get it. But I think we have a generation that is at a place where they are declining requests to be in ministry. They're less likely to be part of ministry because of some frustrations, because of some legit issues. And I say that we have a time where people love Jesus but hate ministry. That they love to worship, they love to serve God, they love to come to church and get a word and give their tithe and offering, but the ministry side, they don't want to do this. And what this is causing is there's an imbalance in church. There's a very, very minute percent of people who are actually serving in ministry. And those that are serving in ministry, they're getting burnt out or they're getting frustrated because there's no help. And we have to address the elephant in the room. Like, ministry is often not a pretty part of church. Right, ministry is the hidden underbelly of church. Like we would think that when people are in ministry, everybody loves God, everybody's on the same page, want to grow the church, want to grow the kingdom. But then once you get into ministry, you see it's quite different. Like, I think once people get into ministry, like, their innocence goes away. You know? I was one of those folks who I called myself naive. I said I was naive enough to think that people actually were in church on the same page, that love God and want to do the same thing. But then as I began to serve in ministry, as I began to see my parents serve in ministry, see my dad, until his last day on this earth, he was a deacon in our local church. My mom also was a deaconess and she did Sunday school. So a lot of what I've experienced, the PTSD that I have, is because of what I've seen and heard personally, not just to myself, but to my loved ones. We had seasons when people were just jealous over us because of ministry. They hated us because of ministry. They created lies against us, against ministry. I'm not talking about the devil, right? And those attacks, because when you're in ministry, he attacks you on a separate level. I'm talking about people. People in the same church as you, people in your same row, people in your same ministry. All of these attacks happen. It's like, why? Like, I thought we come to church, we love God. You're in ministry, you have a gift, a talent you want to put to use, and let's do it for the glory of God. That's not how it goes down. It's like, there's so many people that sit here and they have ulterior motives. Like, there are people in ministry that do it for power. Humans love power, so sometimes people are in ministry just for the fact that they can say I have power over someone else. For the simple thing is like, you know what? Hey, I'm sitting here and I'm going to be your leader, and just for that, we see folks join ministry. We see folks join ministry just to be for popularity, for clout. I think clout is one of the most addictive and dangerous drugs on this earth. Clout to me is like crack cocaine. It's like weed. Like, it's a dangerous drug, and people sit there and join ministry for clout. So if you join ministry for the wrong reasons, of course, when it comes down to doing ministry, you're going to sit there and cause issues. Like, there's people who are in ministry that don't love people, that don't like people. They're antisocial, but yet they're in ministry. Right? They don't want to deal with people. Like, we think ministry is just us and God. No, it's us and the people of God. You serve your church. You serve your community. You serve, the people around you when you do ministry. Ministry is not just between you and God, right? That's your personal relationship and devotional time go between you and God. But what ministry is serving the people of God. It's being the hands and the feet of God on this earth or within the church. So you can't not like people, but still want to do ministry. You can't have poor communication skills and still want to do ministry, right? So we have to understand it and be real with ourselves that Ministry is us being in a place where we serve people of God. So there's people in ministry that don't like people, that don't like to talk to people, that don't like to deal with people, that don't like to sit here and interact with people. Like, you have people in ministry that are like this. We also see this as a way of a deterrent because it affects ministry. Because ministry, the dynamic of ministry is a team type dynamic. So we have to work together. We have to work with God, with heaven, but also with each other. Right? We can't be at a place where I don't like people will still want to do ministry. You can't do ministry by yourself. You will fail at ministry if you try to do it by yourself. So a lot of what's happening is we have people that just don't have the ability to talk to people but yet want to do ministry. That does not work. Doesn't work. You have to be at a place where you're able to communicate and deal with others in order for you to effectively do ministry. Right? So we have these issues and these dynamics that has caused ministry to be such a burden. I had someone say that ministry was misery. It's not a misery. It's, first of all, it's a privilege. To be able to serve people of God and to represent God is a privilege. However, despite that, I understand why folks are adverse to doing ministry. I understand why folks are trying to avoid ministry. So I want to share with you 3 ways to help avoid getting to that place where you're at a place where you're gifted and talented, but you don't want to do ministry. The first thing I would suggest you do is to look at yourself. Not saying it's all your fault, not saying you're the one to blame, but I really believe when you sit here and look at yourself, there's often things that you can do better. There's often things where you could have improved on to prevent the issues and strife from happening. So the first thing I would suggest for you to do is to look at yourself and say, what could I do better? If you can't do it objectively, have your spouse, have a trusted friend, have your pastor, your mentor, have them as well. Look at the situation and say, you know what? You could have done X, Y, and Z better. You should have done this. I would have done that. I would have gone here. So these are the ways for you to sit here and find a way to improve yourself and to maybe say, maybe the reason why it's not working is not because of my personality. See, one of the things that I'm learning as a pastor, and I'm still learning, and one of the reasons why a lot of times I have failed in ministry is because I don't like asking for help. I like doing things on my own, and with the expectation that folks are able to read my mind and to come to me and say, how can I help? Like, oh, we got a program. I'm going here. I'm going there. Folks should know, hey, pastor, what can I do? But some people are waiting for you to come to them. Some people are going through their own stuff. So they ain't got time to come after you to say, Pastor Ron, how can I help you out? So what I'm learning to do is to tap into my team and the great people that are around me. That I don't have to do everything by myself. Because I can't. I tell my church every Sunday, listen, I thank God for my worship team and musicians, because if I had to do worship and play an instrument, the church will be shut down because I can't sing. And folks be like, you know what? I'm going someplace else because this guy sounds like crap. You understand what I'm saying? So we can't do ministry by ourselves. And sometimes one of the things that we do is that we're the issue. We're the problem. Our personality is the issue. It's like a relationship, a marriage that fails and going through strife. It's not always the other person's fault. There's certain things that you can do better, right? So I think it's important for us to learn the importance of looking within. It's not taking all the blame, not saying other folks are at fault or responsible, but what it's saying is that also, you know what? Maybe there's something I could have done better to help prevent this from crumbling. Number 2, give some grace. Give grace. Give grace because, again, what I said before, ministry is dealing with other people. We're not dealing with angels. We're not simply dealing with God. But in order for ministry to do well, you must deal with other people. So therefore, you need to also extend grace. It's not to, again, absolve them for responsibility. It's not a lack of accountability. What you're doing is saying, you know what? They need to, yes, they failed here. I'm not going to cut them off. I'm not going to leave the church. I'm not going to leave ministry. Let's have a conversation. Let me pour into them to teach them what they could have done wrong. Let me get to a point where I push them to a point where I say, listen, here's how I would have handled this situation. Here, not be so quick to cut off and to speak bad about and to leave ministry. Get to a point where you have grace. And understand you're dealing with humans who are not perfect. They're not angels. Ministers are not perfect. We still struggle. We still have our ups and downs. We still have things we have to improve on. And we can never say, oh, wait till you get that all figured out, then come into ministry. Yes, there's a standard, but the standard is not perfection. We're still human. So I think oftentimes we got to do a better job of extending grace and not wanting to fire people and let people go and cut people off. I think it's important to be patient. Right? Because you know what's going to happen? There's going to come one day where you need some patience. They're going to come one day where you need to be at a place where you sit here and you need a level of grace because you're going to mess up. So always lead with grace. Number 3, pray for them. Say, God, this is your church. This is your ministry. This person is your child. God, deal with them. Fix them. You tried to take accountability. You tried to reach out. They didn't want to reach out. You tried everything in your power. You tried everything that you could do to get this person to come back and do things right. But yet there's no response. Give them to God. Say, God, change their heart. God, be who let me be who they need me to be to get them to the next level. Right? Pray. Give them to God. This is God's ministry. This is God's church ultimately. And God knows this person's shortcomings. God knows this person's issues. God knows what they're doing wrong. But yet we sometimes are so quick to be like, yo, nah, I'll deal with them. I'll fix them. Meet me outside. I've seen people fight in church. I've seen folks fight outside of church. I've seen emails. I've seen messages. I've seen shouting matches between ministers, where me and my sister were sitting behind closed door with our ear to the door to hear all the tea. Shouting matches between ministers, pastors, deacons, deaconess, teachers, prophets, fighting. But have you given them to God? As opposed to bad-mouthing them and leaving the ministry and call them all types of names, call them immature and this and that. Have you say, yo, God, fix this person? Because if you see it, I'm pretty sure somebody else sees it. And you don't want to get to the point where it crumbles the ministry altogether because that brings down the kingdom. So ultimately, I just want to encourage you to find a way. I get the fact that you don't want to serve ministry. I get the nastiness of ministry. I get it. I've been through it for almost 30 years. I understand the good and bad of ministry. But it's no excuse for you not to serve God. It's no excuse for you not to serve the people of God. Because you who sit there and say, because of the way people are, I ain't doing ministry. I'm going to sit quiet in church. I ain't going to use my gifts and talents. You are like the person that God has given a talent to and buried their talent underground. The purpose of ministry is to have fruits in our calling and our gifts. But if you sit there and sit in the pews, knowing you can help something out, knowing you have the gift, then your gift won't bear any fruit. And God will hold you accountable. God's not going to sit here and say, oh, I understand. Yeah, that Pastor Ron was crazy. It's good for you to sit there and not do what I called you to do. God will be like, yeah, I get it. I don't blame you. I would have done the same thing if I was you. God wouldn't say that. God will be like, listen, I've given you a talent. Yes, I know there's shortcomings. Why did you sit down? Why didn't you do what God has called you to do? People didn't call you. God called you. People didn't give you your gifts. God did. Your pastor didn't give you your gifts. God did. So stop allowing people to prevent you from serving God and doing what God has called you to do. Because ministry, of course, you serve the people of God, but you're also serving God. You're serving God through his people. So I think ultimately we have to do what God has called us to do. And I don't want anyone to get to a point where you don't walk in your calling and you leave this earth full of gifts and talents and ideas. But because of how people are in ministry, you don't do what God has called you to do. So I pray this blesses you. I pray this encourages you. Please don't forget, subscribe, share, comment, show some love. Drop this in your group chat. Please, 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 so we can grow this ministry. Thank you so much for your time. I love you. God bless you. Peace.